Keto diet plan for beginners. A lot of times people want to try something, but they're confused. There's some question marks. They're not totally sure about how it works. So today we're going to talk about some of the basics, and we're going to give you some examples of meals that you could eat to get started on a keto diet. We're going to talk about calories and macros and percentages and make sure that you got everything crystal clear. Coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg. I'm a holistic doctor and a former Olympic decathlete. And if you want to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss anything. So let's first just cover some of the very basics. That there's a lot of talk about calories. And yes, calories matter because in the end, if you want to lose weight, you need to have a calorie deficit. But all calories are not created equal. They don't affect the body the same. So if you eat 100 calories of carbohydrate, you will trigger a lot of insulin. Your blood sugar will spike, your insulin will spike, and your body will attempt to store the excess calories because you can't burn through that instantly, but you have to get the sugar out of the bloodstream almost instantly. So therefore, insulin and carbohydrate puts you in a storage mode. And as long as insulin is high, then you're still in that storage mode, and it's difficult for the body to retrieve whatever fat you have stored, and therefore you get hungry. And this is something that's so overlooked. And people that have tried keto and then they slip a little bit and go back to carbs, they can testify that when you eat carbs, you get hungrier. All right, so it's not just about the calories. 100 calories of carbs make you hungrier than 100 calories of fat because 100 calories of fat reduces insulin. It produces virtually no insulin response, and over time it allows your overall insulin to go down, which puts you into a fat burning mode, which means that you are satisfied because you have access to the food store. So that's the very first basic fact to realize, that calories are not the same. They create different hormone responses. And that's why the keto diet is so popular and so successful, and why people are so satisfied even though they lose weight on it. So let's dive into it and look at some examples of meals, of food that you could eat on a keto diet. So if you like cereal in the morning, a lot of people eat milk with a banana, and then they have cereal, grain cereal, sweetened grain cereal. And now you're going to get a bunch of sugar from the milk, you're going to get a bunch of sugar from the cereal, and a lot of carbs from the grain. But instead, let's say that we swap out the milk for yogurt, and I like to use sour cream. I like to mix yogurt and sour cream because I like it really creamy, and by increasing the fat content, that means that there's actually less carbohydrate. And if you find a really sour, really tart yogurt, then there's also less sugar in that. There's going to be some carbohydrate in the yogurt, but we can still fit that into a ketogenic diet. So let's say that we have half a cup of yogurt and half a cup of sour cream. That's 1 cup total, about 120 grams of each, 240 grams, it's about a cup. So let's look at the yogurt part of this. Then you're going to get 4.4 grams of fat from that amount, from half a cup of yogurt. You're going to get 4 grams of protein, and you're going to get 4.8 grams of net carbs. So there's no fiber in yogurt, but if there is a food with fiber, then you take the total carbs and you subtract the fiber, because you're only interested in the carbs that you can digest, that you can absorb into the bloodstream. So let's take one example where we explain in detail, we look at the details of how to calculate the percentages, how to calculate the macros for a keto diet. So fat is going to give you 9 calories per gram, protein is going to give you 4 calories per gram, and carbohydrate is going to give you 4 calories per gram. So the fat has the most calories, so we don't have to eat as much fat by volume to still get the fat to be dominant. So 4.4 grams times 9 calories is 40 calories from fat in that yogurt. 4 calories times 4 grams is 16 calories from protein. And we have 4.8 grams of carbohydrate times 4 calories is 19 calories from carbohydrate. And the carbohydrate in this case is all lactose. That's the sugar in milk. And this is just a little bit less lactose than in milk, because once the yogurt turns sour, the lactobacillus actually consumes some of the sugar and turns it into lactic acid. That's why there's less sugar and it tastes a little bit tart. So the more sour, the more tart you can find your yogurt, the less sugar and the more beneficial bacteria. Now when we add up those calories, we find that 75 calories are going to come from half a cup of yogurt. Now 40 calories divided by 75 total means that the fat is responsible for 53.3% of the calories are coming from fat. The protein gives us 21.1% of the calories, and the carbohydrate gives us 25.6% of the calories. So far, that's not a ketogenic diet, but because there's going to be other things in here, it can still fit into a ketogenic diet. Just don't overdo the yogurt portion of that. So let's look at the sour cream portion of this. And this is why I like to put sour cream in there, not just because I love the creamy flavor, but it actually makes it much more ketogenic. So we get 23.6 grams of fat from half a cup of sour cream. We get 2.5 grams of protein and 4.2 grams of carbs. So because there's more fat in there, there's going to be less of the other things as a percentage. So the fat percentage in sour cream is 89% comes from fat. 89% of calories are from fat, 4% come from protein, and 7% come from carbohydrate. Total calories 240 from the sour cream. And instead of the cereal, I like to put ground seeds and nuts on my yogurt. So I use ground flaxseed. You could also use chia seed. They're very, very similar nutritionally. So 2 tablespoons of flax gives you 8.4 grams of fat, 3.7 grams of protein, and 0.3 grams of net carbs. That percentage turns out to be 83% of the calories in flax come from fat, 16% come from protein, and only 1% of the calories in flax are from carbohydrate. So now that we're adding some more fat, we are sort of diluting the carbohydrates from the yogurt. And then one of my favorite nuts is pecans. My 3 favorite nuts are macadamias, pecans, and walnuts. So it's going to change the numbers just a little bit, but all 3 of those are very, very safe for a ketogenic diet. So here we have a 1/4 cup, or about 1 ounce of pecans, which gives us 20 grams of fat, 2.6 grams of protein, 1.2 grams of carbs, and the percentage, the macro percentages, is 92% from fat, 5% from protein, and 3% from carbohydrate. So now when we add it all up, we do have a ketogenic meal, and we're eating 600 calories in this breakfast. So we're getting a lot of satisfying fat, we're getting just a tiny little bit of carbohydrate. All right, so now it's time for lunch. And I'm assuming with this example that you're still eating 3 meals. So a lot of people, once they start a ketogenic diet, then they'll notice they get less hungry, so after a while they start skipping a meal because 2 meals is plenty satisfying. But for right now, we're just going to assume that we are eating 3 meals. We're not even trying to lose weight yet. We're just trying to change the body and get it a little fat adapted. So now it's time for lunch, and we're going to make an omelet. We're going to have 2 eggs, that's 110 grams. We're going to have an ounce of sausage. We're going to have 1.5 ounces of tomato, spinach, bell pepper, mushroom, 1.5 ounces each. Then we'll have 1.5 ounces of cheddar cheese and a tablespoon of olive oil. 2 eggs provide 10.5 grams of fat, 13.8 grams of protein, and 0.8 grams of carbs. That's 62% of calories from fat, 36% from protein, and 2% from carbohydrates. So eggs in themselves are quite ketogenic. 1 ounce of sausage will get you 8 grams of fat, 4.5 grams of protein, and no carbs at all because it's an all meat product. Meat doesn't have carbs. That means 80% of calories in sausage come from fat and 20% come from protein for a total of 90 calories. All right, so next in the omelette we put some vegetables, and I've grouped those together because they're very similar foods. These are non-starchy, they're very water-rich, and they have lots of fiber. So tomato, spinach, bell pepper, and mushrooms, we use 1.5 ounces of each, and they provide virtually 0 fat. So then people ask, well, how can they be in a ketogenic diet? I thought keto was about eating lots of fat. Well, it's not really how it works. It's just that you want to avoid carbs, and then the only other food that doesn't stimulate insulin at all is fat. So you reduce the carbs, you eat moderate protein, and then you up the fats to fill out the rest of your nutritional and caloric needs. So for most people, a ketogenic diet, a ketogenic effect occurs when we eat about 75% fat, 20% of calories from protein, and 5% of calories from carbohydrate. So even though there's virtually no fat in the vegetables, there's also hardly any protein or any carbohydrate. They're mostly water. So when we look at the percentages, we have 11, 17, 12, and 8. We have around 10% from fat. We have about 20 to 50, 22, 56, 18, and 53, so it varies a bit, but it doesn't really matter. Carbohydrates, we have 67, 27, 70%, and 39%. But the reason it doesn't matter is that there's so few calories. All in all, these foods, these vegetables, provide less than 40 calories, so the percentage, their composition, doesn't really matter as long as the net carbs are very low, which they are. And that's why you can include lots of non-starchy vegetables in your ketogenic diet. And then we top off the omelette with some yummy cheese, and we cook it in some olive oil. 1.5 ounces of cheese provides 15 grams of fat, 10.8 grams of protein, 0.6 grams of carbs. So percentage-wise, it's 75% of calories from fat, 24% from protein, and only 1% from carbohydrate. And then we cook it in some olive oil. And I like to use extra virgin olive oil, organic extra virgin olive oil, because we want to use a nutritious and whole food. And while it is very sensitive to heat, if you put it in the pan and then you pour the egg batter on top of the olive oil is never going to get really hot. So you can safely cook in extra virgin olive oil when you're making an omelette. And that 1 tablespoon of olive oil provides 15 grams of fat and no protein and no carbohydrates. So obviously 100% of the calories in oil comes from fat. So the cheese adds 183 calories and the olive oil adds 135. So in total, this omelette has 597 calories. So both the breakfast and the lunch have right at 600 calories, and both of them would fit great into a ketogenic diet. And for dinner, I often have a salad, and I love a hamburger salad. I just cook hamburger patties, whether it's on the grill or in a frying pan like I would cook a hamburger. And then instead of having a bun and vegetables, I just throw it on top of a salad. And I use 15% fat in the ground beef, and I eat about 1/2 pound. So that half a pound gives me 34 grams of fat, 46 grams of protein, and no carbohydrate. So from that type of hamburger meat, you get 62% of calories from fat and 38% from protein for a total of 487 calories. So just like in the omelette, the vegetables have very little impact because there's so few calories. 45 grams of spring mix, which is about 2 cups, have 0 fat, 0.5 protein, 0.5 carbs. 45 grams or 1.5 ounce of tomato has 0, 0, 1, and onion has 0.5 and 3.4. So they're very small amounts. And even though the percentages, again, are pretty high, the total calories are 4, 7, and 16 compared to 487. So the percentages from the vegetables really wash out. And then at the end, if you're a hard dye hamburger fan, you might have to put some mayo on it. I put a little bit of mayo and some olive oil. If you don't want to do the mayo, then you can just use more olive oil. But I'll use about 2 tablespoons of mayo and a tablespoon of olive oil. And those are virtually all fat, of course, so almost 100% of the calories come from the fat. They add 235 and 135 calories. So all in all, this salad is going to get you about 885 calories. And if we add this all up, it's 2,085 calories. And some people are going to lose weight on that, and some people are not. But like I said, this is just really to get you fat adapted. You don't want to try to starve yourself until you have changed your metabolism from carb dependent to fat dependent, to fat adapted. So then a lot of people say that, oh, keto is too expensive, or eating clean keto is too expensive. I can't afford to get healthy because this food is so costly. Well, let's look at some of these costs. And I'm going to go through and explain where I get these foods and what they cost me, and then we can just kind of add it up and see. The only yogurt that I really like that you can buy is European style organic plain whole fat from Trader Joe's. I love it. You can make it a little more sour if you make it yourself, but that's about the only sour yogurt that I've found, and that's the kind that I like. Half a cup of that yogurt is going to cost you 53 cents. The sour cream I get from Costco. Sometimes I'll get an organic somewhere, but I've found that the Costco sour cream, even though it's in a big tub and it's very inexpensive, it's actually a very good quality. So I do very well with that, and it only cost me 35 cents. It's actually cheaper. So if you want to dilute your yogurt with sour cream, it actually brings the cost down as well as make it creamier. Flaxseed is almost ridiculously cheap. 2 tablespoons of organic flaxseed is about 13 cents. I grind it myself, I keep it in the freezer, and then it's ready to go. Pecans are a little bit more expensive than some other nuts, but a 1/4 cup doesn't cost too much. It's about 62 cents. So all in all, this wholesome, high-fat breakfast is going to cost you a whopping $1.63. I don't think that's an argument for having to stay with your brand name cereal in the morning. When it comes to eggs, it's a good idea to spend a little bit extra. I don't worry so much about organic as I worry about pastured. I want the chicken to have a normal life. I want it to run outside and get some sunshine and eat some bugs and eat whatever chickens like to eat. Those are called pastured chickens. If you can get pasture organic, that's a little better even, but I'd much rather have a pastured non-organic than an organic mass-produced. So I pay about $6, $7 for 12 eggs, so 2 eggs are going to cost $1.08. An ounce of good quality sausage without nitrates or MSG or anything is going to run you maybe about 40 cents. Tomatoes, spinach, bell pepper, and mushrooms, I'd like to get organic as much as possible. I try to get them from a local market, like a local farmer's market or Sprouts or something like that. They'll run you 25, 30, 40 cents per item. An ounce and a half of a good quality cheese is 89 cents. I had to look pretty hard to find a local farmer's market that has grass-fed raw cheese. That's the best one that is least interfered with. It still has bacteria and enzymes, and it's grass-fed, so it has the right ratios of omega-6s to omega-3. So it's worth spending a little bit extra. I was lucky to find that one. It runs about $9 or $10 a pound. I typically get my olive oil from Costco. They have these big tubs, 2 liters, I think it is, of organic extra virgin olive oil. So a tablespoon of that will run you about 15 cents. So all in all, making an omelette with top-notch ingredients is going to cost you about $3.76. The quality of meat is very important, and I'm thrilled that at least where I live, Walmart has started carrying grass-fed organic ground beef, and it is $5.64 a pound. So it is so well worth it. Even if you can find ground beef for $3 or $4 somewhere, those extra couple of dollars are well worth it. The taste is incredible. They're nice and juicy, flavorful, and you know that it's going to have that healthy fat ratio in it. For the salad, I typically use a spring mix or a mix of power greens from Costco. You get that 1 pound tub for about $3.99, sometimes $4.99. So 2 cups, only going to run you about 40 cents. I like to get organic tomatoes and onions when I can from the farmer's market. They'll run you about $1.25 and 10 cents. When it comes to mayo, most of the time I try to make my own, or I try to get a brand that uses avocado oil or something that's a little better than the soybean or the canola oil. But sometimes I'm lazy and I just want to kind of grab something, and I'll have some commercial mayo. It's not the best fat, but it's not gonna ruin your keto. So if you only use it once in a while, then it's not too bad. But I would recommend that in the long run you try to find some better mayo, or even make it yourself. 2 tablespoons going to run you probably about 20 cents. Again, the olive oil I get organic, extra virgin from Costco. A tablespoon's about 15 cents. And I also like to put some vinegar on my salads. 2 tablespoons is typically about 10 cents. And if you want to get if you like apple cider vinegar, then that's a great way to get a little bit of extra apple cider vinegar in there. But if you like the balsamic or the white wine or the red wine vinegar, those will work fine as well. So in this particular example, I've put together amounts of food that total 2,085 calories. And the total cost for that, for a whole day of good quality, grass-fed, mostly organic, high-quality food, the whole cost for the day is $9.41. And if you're a little bit smaller person and you're getting into the keto a little bit longer and you get less hungry, then you're probably going to end up eating even less, so maybe 1,500 calories. And at that rate, you'd be spending $6.77 per day. So considering that a cup of coffee at Starbucks, a specialty coffee, is over $5, I think it's hard to justify for most people that you can't afford to eat healthy, when a happy meal is as much as you would eat in an entire day. Now, I realize that there's some people on very tight budgets, and to those people I would say just do the best you can. You pick and choose and you do what you can afford, but you're still going to be much better off eating a low-carb diet than eating a high-carb diet. So if you have to get the cheaper ground beef, if you have to get the regular eggs, then do that. But realize that you don't spend a whole lot of money by going for a higher grade of food. So now I'm sure you want to know, what are the macros for this example? So we said in the beginning that we want to shoot for 75% of calories from fat, about 20% from protein, and 5% from carbohydrate. And in this example, when we add it all up, we have eaten 180 grams of fat, 93 grams of protein, and only 22 grams of net carbs. And the percentages come out 78% of calories from fat, 18% from protein and only 3.9% from carbohydrates. So this is going to be a very powerful ketogenic diet for most people. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you check out that one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.